Hey every, it's Survey Program. We're doing our first episode on a fan game today, and it's brand new and super fun. It's Undertale Cooking with Kindness. You can find the link in the description. As per our usual approach, we won't be discussing spoilers for the latter half of the demo until later in the episode, and we'll say before we do, so if you want to be completely surprised by everything, you can still listen up to that point. Music for this episode is by Hayden Mose Danneman and the music contributors to Undertale Cooking with Kindness. All right, welcome back to Survey Program. Folks listening, you might recall that I had a fun fandom talk with Shadow of Roserod last time. About the insane works, the insane Titanic works of the Deltarune fandom during the hiatus between chapters. And on that last episode, you mentioned you were working on a Undertale fan game, Undertale Cooking with Kindness. And I said, I can't wait to play it, and I can't wait to have you on the show once it's getting closer to the demo being released. And now we're here. We're coming down to it. And so I got to play the demo. I got the chance to go through it. And so my first question for you really is: we're coming up on demo release day. How are you feeling? Like, how does that feel to be like on the verge of it?
Well, there's two sides to this question, really. First of all, there's the side that's like, basically everything is basically done. The game's ready. Besides some minor polish and stuff. So until the demo is released, it's mostly it's so stress free because the past couple of weeks have been, we have to get so much done, so many fixes, so much testing going, and so honestly, despite what you might expect, the last week before release, I feel a bit lighter, especially, but that's supposed to be because we've done so much work in the past couple of weeks, and I guess nothing can really compare to the weight that I was in when I was in the middle of finals, and also having to oversee everything coming up to its conclusion as well. So that's the first bit. The second bit, I already forgot what the question was.
Just how are you feeling in the lead up to release? Is it exciting?
Oh, it's very exciting, and that's the second bit where it's like, there's so many people are now going to actually get to see it, and in its glory. Or maybe that sounds a bit conceited, but I mean, what the hell?
No,
I can
it's
be
really
conceited.
good.
I made the game. It's good.
Yeah, so
It's a good game.
I haven't touched, so I haven't talked about it yet. But I guess give the listeners a quick introduction to what is Undertale Cooking with Kindness.
Well, Kate, I'm glad you asked. Undertale Cooking with Kindness is Undertale fan game. It's kind of like it's a prequel fan game focusing on one of the previous souls. It's similar in that aspect to Undertale Yellow. It follows the story of the green soul of kindness. It's Sunny, and how they meet this monster called Luna, and they work together to make the greatest restaurant that the underground has ever seen. And the whole game is a cooking simulator. There are no battles, and you basically just go through days working shifts as a cook in a restaurant. And all the fun stuff that comes with that in an Undertale context.
Absolutely. And so my first question then really was, when you're thinking about making a prequel or a sequel to something, I feel like the first question that I ask myself is, like, why should this exist, right? What's the use case, right? Because just being more of something isn't enough of an argument, right? Just filling in an arbitrary gap in a story isn't enough for me. And so when I was playing
I feel like that's definitely something a very common thing recently. I feel like I haven't been keeping up with any of the major things of anything really, but I know from the grapevine what the stuff like Star Wars and other Marvel has been doing in the past couple of years, and it's kind of sad.
Absolutely. It feels like the big cultural tentpole franchises are just stuck in this well, we have to make more of it because it makes money, or because it just needs to continue shambling on.
Does it even make money though? I don't know.
Not that much anymore.
I don't know.
Marvel's out of juice.
Like 10 years ago, you'd hear about like movies breaking like $2 billion or whatever. But like, when's the last time you ever heard anybody talk about a movie that like was one of the big franchises? It doesn't happen anymore.
No,
like
it's
the
true.
last couple of movies, I can list you all the movies I've heard anybody ever talk about over the since the beginning of this year, maybe even to last year, and those are from most recent to recording, farthest away. It's in order: Project Hail Mary, which is a great movie, technically based on a book, but it's basically a new property anyway.
Yeah.
Iron Lung, which is technically based on a game, but it's
new to the screen.
Really an indie film.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's a very indie production, probably one of the most indie productions you can find in a big theater anymore. Or I guess it's not there anymore. But I mean.
Isn't it so exciting that somebody can just get a totally independent project on that many screens? I didn't even watch it. I didn't even play the original game. I just find it so exciting that like you can make something like that and get it out into audiences. It's a total sea change in cinema.
Don't I know that? This actually that's actually tying in back to a topic from your last episode about millennial art and the amazing digital circus, because they're also doing that, and it's going through a similar arc of like starting off as like a small thing in a few theaters in America, and then by popular demand getting its own screenings in like all over the world.
Yeah, and so it definitely feels like we're in an environment where there's been a sea change, where people actually are looking for they're looking for originality. They're looking for new stories to be told. And I think, so I've got my own answer to this question, but I guess my question for you is, why make this, right? What's the gap for you? What are you looking to fill in with this?
Before I answer this question, I want to hear your answer actually, because that's perked up my ears.
All right. So for me, and I've got a few questions on this in the future in it as well, but I really enjoyed getting to look at another side of the underground with this. It felt like a more, Undertale it introduces you to this world, but you're encountering it very much like a series of trails to walk through, right? It's a very sort of linear story. You're going from one place to another, and you don't spend a lot of time in each location. And I would say, really, aside from Snowden, most of them don't feel like these like fully lived in locations, but rather just sort of a series of barriers to walk through. And so it was super exciting to get the chance to sort of dig into one spot and, see it gradually change over time and get that feeling of time passing. But also for me, the amount of surgery that's been done on the game to make it a whole new thing, gameplay loop wise, was so exciting. As I was playing it, I was just like, this is so crazy that this is happening in an Undertale like it's not just more Undertale, it's a whole new kind of game.
It's interesting that you call it surgery.
They did surgery on a grape.
It's that's not even funny. Why did I laugh at that? That's just a stupid reference to something that's not even. Okay, you totally derailed me with that. I forgot what we were even saying. What was I saying? Oh God!
I called it surgery because I was thinking about that the whole time. Surgery. Of like, how did you get this in there?
Well, the thing with surgery is that they usually last a couple hours.
Yeah.
This did not last a couple of hours. This was the reason. Okay, so do you actually know how long this has been in development?
I think you mentioned it's been years, right?
Give me your guess. When do you think this started development?
I would say 6 years ago.
Oh my God. No. Jesus Christ. Imagine. No. It's not that much.
Well, I know, because you haven't been doing it full time, and so I was like, I'll give a long time estimate, because if,
No. We've been doing it since January of 2024. So 2 years and a couple extra months.
Well, that's a pretty impressive turnaround then, actually.
I mean, this is just the demo. It's not the full game.
Yeah, but...
So...
There's good bones.
There's a lot more. We'll get the 6-year mark soon enough. Don't worry. And by which I mean 4 years, because that's how math works. But the reason that took so long... Okay, there's a lot of reasons that took so long. But the thing is, the whole of the first year and some extra change into the second year were just retrofitting the engine to work with the system. Basically, creating all those systems was a big investment right at the beginning, and there were some issues with libraries and stuff that I don't want to get into, but that's basically the whole thing. A lot of time was spent tinkering and making everything actually functional. Did that answer the question? I don't even remember what the question was at this point.
Yeah, well, we're sort of two questions deep. I was asking, like, how did you even get this system in there? But now let's back up and talk about, like, why did you want to make this? Why did you want to tell this story?
Okay, so there's the real answer, which is the spoiler answer, and then there's the answer I'm going to actually give you, which is what if I'm going. Well, I'm going to give you one small answer, one large answer. The small answer is the origin story for Cooking with Kindness is somebody, a random user on the Andrew Cunningham Discord server made an offhand comment one time that was like, what if someone made a Green Soul fan game that was like Papa's Pizzeria style, and that was like, that's a really good idea. And then I didn't know what it was in for when I said that. So that's the origin story. That's the sort of stuff they're going to sell on, like, when we're advertising for milk cartons or something, and we're giving my cool epic backstory as how this game came to be, like the Lego story. I don't know if this is going to be in anybody else's brain. I remember going to like a Lego museum when I was like 6 years old, and they had like a history, like origin story of Lego, and there was this like really dramatic like scene of like the guy making the Legos and how he came up with the name Legos, where he like looked outside and there was like a truck and then it made the word Legos and he was like, Lego. and I don't know why I remember this. It's so dumb, but it's really funny to me.
It's Isaac Newton sitting under the tree and a Lego brick hits him.
This is what you get when you introvert you and me for the podcast. We just go on random tangents.
Yeah,
We forget the questions halfway.
And you mentioned like spoiler reasons, and so like just if you're, I'm going to mention this in the intro as well. But we're not going to talk about even the back half of the demo until later in the episode. So we'll mark a point where, if you haven't played yet, you should go play. You have to
go play the game yourself.
You have to go play.
Game Drill. Go download it right now. When you're listening to this podcast, it's out. You can do it. It's only a couple of hours long. By the time this is out, it's going to be out. We'll pitch it more at the end as well. But it's. I have no shame. I will do whatever to make you play the game.
That's what this episode's for. And so
exactly.
Thinking again about a prequel, I've previously directed a game that was a prequel to something else, and the main character was basically everybody knew was dead from the start. And so, basically one of the only things we know about the other human souls is that they're dead, right? We see the coffins.
Exactly.
And so when you're going into telling a story about, you're going into telling a prequel like this, how do you approach that? Because I was kind of always thinking about that, because when you're in that space where you're telling a story with a character that doesn't make it, like, how does that inform your approach writing wise?
Well, that's the thing is, when you're making that story, everything has got to center around that, not just the character that is going to die.
Yeah.
Or at least that's how my philosophy for it. If you're going to make a story about a character that is fated to die, then your story is inherently about fate in some way, or the fate in a more metatextual sense of like, it's okay. I'm going to go on another tangent, but there's something that when I've been discussing the game with other people, especially like after they played the full demo. This doesn't spoil anything. Where it's like. And people like obviously often compare this to Undertale Yellow, and the sort of dichotomy I often frame it as is Undertale Yellow is a response to Undertale, whereas Cooking with Kindness is definitely more in conversation with Deltarune. And
Interesting.
in that sense, that's where the idea of let's comes through with this idea of like fate and things that have to happen and what that means for a story and the characters within it. So moving on from the from Sunny, which is our human, you can see this in the construction of basically every other character. Obviously, I won't go too deep into how that sort of works out. But Luna, hold on. First of all, before I go too deep into this, I want to hear what you think about the characters.
Absolutely. So I had a section later on for sort of going character by character, but I'll move up the Luna, because I definitely, I think the first thing, I knew nothing about this going in other than, okay, it's like Undertale, but there's cooking mini games. That's literally it. That's all I knew going in. Mm-hmm. And I think, unlike probably a lot of people who are going to play this, I've never played Undertale Yellow. I've absorbed quite a bit of detail about Undertale Yellow by osmosis, just by sort of being around fans and people who've played it a lot. Mm-hmm. But I haven't gotten to it yet. I'll do it for a future episode at some point. And so I didn't have any of that context. And so, at the very start, I'm like, yeah, you're here with Toriel, right? That's exactly what I expected, right? That's obviously it's cooking themed. Of course Toriel is going to be there. And my sort of first thought was like, okay, so you're going to be with Toriel the whole time. Obviously the game pretty quickly disabuses you of that notion. I don't think we're getting into the spoiler portion yet to say that about 5 minutes in.
This is the first 5 minutes.
Yeah, yeah. I think we're allowed to touch this now at this point. But you're pretty quickly separated, and so rather than just being this sort of rote recreation of Undertale beats, you're really quickly thrown into a new world and a new setting. And you meet Luna, this sort of this guardian angel moth character.
Guardian angel, that's a new descriptor.
Well, they pluck you out of the freezing cold.
I can see that.
Yeah, they save you, and you gotta, it seems like you got a pretty decent pad to crash in immediately after, and so you're
especially in this economy.
It's exactly. So you're immediately sort of indebted to this character in a sort of, in a sense. They're a lifesaver, and also they're the first bit of consistency that you get in this world. And you definitely get this immediate sense of Sunny as a character with like a servant heart, as somebody who wants to make a difference, mm-hmm. somebody who wants to help other people. And some of that immediately, you get the sense from the narration that might come from a sense of self-doubt, or sort of when you're to sort of loop back a little bit, like when you're talking about any of the humans in Undertale, the first thing that you have to confront is, why were you on the Death Mountain? Why were you, what brought a character to the sad mountain for sad people?
The other thing you really have to ask is, how did you manage to die when you have infinite tries?
That's true. And so
you're a loser. You can't beat Asgore. He's like totally easy. Like he's not that hard. He's not even Sans. Come on.
I will say I did replay Undertale right before doing the first episode of the show, and I only died to like one random like hallway fight, but then I did die to Asgore like 3 times. So I was like, what the hell's wrong with me? Am I washed? But yeah,
you would not survive going down Mount Ebott. I'm just sorry.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. But that's the thing is when you're talking about one of the humans in the game, you do have to confront, like, as we said earlier, like this character's first off, they're a goner, right? And also there must be something wrong because they went to the sad mountain for sad children, and so obviously that sucks. That's not good. Like they didn't go to the happy mountain for happy children.
They went to the mountainside. Mountainside.
And so they immediately sort of put themselves like in this this sort of helpful position, this this position of subservience and assistance to Luna's dream. And that brings you to, as you mentioned, the wanting to create the best restaurant in the underground, which is that immediately was like, this is such a funny, it's such a different stake than like your typical like RPG. I have to save the world. No, you have to you have to get a Michelin star, motherfucker. It's, it's a totally different thing. And so you get into that first, the battle replaced by cooking. And that's so fun. I don't know. It was so awesome to have. I felt like it was a lot more dynamic than, Undertale. Obviously it's over 10 years old at this point, right? Like Undertale, you go back to it and
don't say that.
I know it's been quite a while, but Undertale, you get to the you go back to it and the battles do feel they're a little stiff, right? And you were talking about this game being more like Deltarune, and I think one of the ways that it is that the battles are much more dynamic and alive feeling.
Battles, quote unquote.
Battles, quote unquote. The food battles, it's like Iron Chef. But it's they're a lot more interactive. The acts in Undertale now, I think, definitely feel a little dated, right? It's just about sort of hunting through the menus to find the right thing to do. But here, there's like a dynamic little like WarioWare, or the more apt comparison would be like Cooking Mama, or other games like that. But like there's like a little micro game for every different type of interaction that you have, and there can be multiple for a single customer. And that immediately struck me as like, first off, that's a lot of work. That's even more work than your usual like bullet pattern, bullet hell.
Oh my god. I know. That's another thing that's caused the game to go on so long. Mini games take a while. However, I want to take this spot right here, take the opportunity to give my full-throated thank you so much to all our mini game designers. That did so good. I want to give a special shout out to Mose, because he wasn't even on the team for mini games or even programming. He was here for composing it first, and then he made a mini game, and he just started making mini games, like 2 mini games in like 4 days, and it was like he's just kind of going through it, and it was like crazy. And he's so good, and he's so epic, and he made 70% of the soundtrack as well. He's cracked.
And so yeah, is that a good opportunity to get people? This is is that a chance to get people collaborating in a way, right? Because you have this like sort of little defined interaction that you can have a collaborator come in on.
Yes, because I'll tell you what, all those mini games, none of them are by me. I did not make any of the mini games. I edited some and did some balancing for them, but the actual underlying like work on the mini games, none of it is mine. And it's like if you look through the credits, there's like 6 or like a bunch of people listed for mini game design, and it's like mini games are such an integral part of this like system and the game itself as a whole, that like you kind of have to give it as much focus as you got, especially when they start getting more elaborate as the game goes on.
Yeah, because some of them are really quite. I mean, some of them are like, you're like looking at like a 30-second or more. It's much longer than any like individual Undertale bullet pattern goes on. Like it just they a lot of them feel a lot more intense than your typical Undertale.
The thing about Undertale bullet patterns that make them easy to make is that's just like, there's the bullets, there's the soul, you gotta move, don't get hit. Simple as that. But for mini games, you have to have like, this is what you need to do, this is how it works. You might not even be controlling the soul, you might be controlling something else. The controls might be completely different from minigame to minigame. It might be a completely different layout. You have to understand immediately what you have to do. That was a big challenge right at the start, where we had to make them as easy to sight read, which is why the WarioWare style pop-up text at the beginning.
I was wondering about that.
Game-changing addition.
Because the conveyance, right? You have to immediately understand what to do, and it would be pretty frustrating if you don't have a way in without like overwhelming the player with text or instructions, right? You just have to quickly do that. And so
let me tell you a story from playtesting.
Yeah, I was going to ask if there were any that gave you that had particular challenges on that front.
Yes, specifically the first boss, the first minigame. For a long time, people were struggling really bad to understand what you were supposed to do there, and it was like for example, when I was at the con, because I was at a con showing off the game a few months back and doing playtests with random people that were at the con. There was one person that got all the way there. It was like a kid with like, I don't know, 13 or something, and he was going pretty well. But then he hit this like brick wall with this mini game and couldn't figure out what he was doing wrong. A part of it was just people don't like reading. People just don't like reading, and that sometimes you just gotta bite the bullet and accept that some people are just not gonna like pay attention to what the text is saying. But there is still stuff that you can do to like make it as easy to understand and easy to like act on as possible. And we went through a lot of revisions. We were tinkering up with it until like a month ago at most. But now I think that's been a really big hit. The patty flip minigame has been a really big hit with every playtester ever since. Because it's one of those things where at first it's kind of frustrating if you feel like you're failing and don't know why. But as soon as you sort of understand what you're supposed to do and get into the rhythm of it, then it becomes really fun. And so it's exactly where I want it to be.
And it feels like a step forward. Yeah, definitely. And it feels like a step forward too, because it's like, because you do the pancakes first, right? And so you get an introduction to that sort of timing-based flip mechanic, and then it just adds another spatial dimension where you're dealing with multiple at the same time. And so it feels like a natural progression in difficulty from, it's like already you're seeing games building in complexity from the mini games that you've already had. And so you've already got an idea about how it works. If you've watched my gameplay videos, I think I mostly got them pretty much first try. Now, I will say after I did one of the days twice, you'll notice there's one mini game this was not an issue of conveyance. This was an issue of me just I don't know what happened, but I just crashed out. The first time there's a mini game where you like cut a loaf of sandwich bread in half, right?
Oh, that one I remember now. Yes.
First time I did it, I did it just fine. I got the great. I didn't get the perfect, but I did it just fine. And then on the replay, for whatever reason, like literally 6 times in a row, I completely failed. I didn't just do it poorly. I completely failed. I saw that. Slicing the bread.
You know what? You're not the only person that happened to. One of our playtesters, it wasn't as much as 6 times, but there were definitely a lot of playtesters that were really close to crashing out about that one specific mini game.
And it's like, I'd done it the first try. I had no idea what was going on. I just every time, I just got stuck in this loop.
It's one of those things that I also noticed when in our playtests where people, as soon as you start getting into the frustration spiral, you start playing worse, and then you start failing again, and then you play worse because you're getting frustrated that you're failing, and so it just creates this death spiral of you just failing and getting more and more upset. We tried to combat that as much as possible, but it's like at a certain point that's inevitable, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not like it's hard. It's not like it's hard. I don't know why I kept messing it up.
There was a good stint of the game where the game was just pathetically easy. Nobody had any trouble at all. I implemented a bit of a slight difficulty spike a little bit ago, and now it feels a lot more reasonable. Like now there's actually people that are getting actually forced to try to play more optimally, whereas before people just could just coast by, and that was a bit of a problem where the people weren't engaging with the mechanics because they had a good safety net, and things weren't punishing quite as much as they should be.
I feel like it's definitely in a good spot where you can sort of if you're having a hard time, you're not playing great, you can sort of coast by and get the middling grades, but getting a good score, I definitely felt like I had to lock in a little bit. You had to try. I definitely felt like the gradual difficulty spike was good. I did lose, I lost. I'm like, that's good. It obviously wasn't too easy because
it made it the game soft locked, but that's what playtesting's for.
That's important. Sometimes you got to have somebody who's bad at the game so you can find things that go wrong when you lose.
Exactly. For me, I
I was super hooked immediately because it felt like instead of just being like stuff you had to get through to advance the story, it feels like there's a real gameplay loop, right? And
Hmm.
I thought immediately, basically immediately upon getting established, I was like, oh, like you could like hang a pretty fully featured like a like just a long player like kind of zen Cozycore indie game on this gameplay loop of just like running the restaurant every day. It felt
Nothing easier than good old fashioned job.
yeah, exactly. And it immediately was like, you don't even need the store. You could just run this restaurant every day and you could do like a tiny bookshop type, indie game on this. I don't know if you've played that, but it's it's
I have
a lot
not.
of like
Here's
job.
actually hopping off that. There's two things I want to say. First of all, I remember I was play testing it at a certain point after like a few months ago after most of the stuff had all the foundations were set and we were just trying to get stuff finalized for a bunch of the different mechanics and stuff. And I remember getting into that sort of zen state and the flow state and being like, wait, this game is actually fun. Because at that point I was really I when you're working on a game for so long, it just kind of like you kind of become numb to it. Like it's not like as you're playing testing it and trying to fix all the stuff, it's not necessarily a fun experience. But like and so I had no like sort of notion of whether people would actually enjoy the game or the gameplay or the gameplay loop. I just kind of had to take it on heart that we're doing something right. But it was at that moment after I was like actually playing the game and enjoying it where I'm like, maybe this is actually going to work and people are going to like it. And so far, the reception has been universally positive from our playtesters.
Yeah.
So that's good.
And
And the second thing I
yes,
was
go
going
on.
to mention, I forgot what it was. And what was the question? Maybe that'll remind me.
I'm just thinking about how like there's a whole genre of like indie games that are kind of like daily job core sort of
Yes.
games like this.
Uh,
Obviously, it's like Stardew is the most famous and most successful example, but there's dozens and dozens of these. But like that's I immediately was like, I see the goal. I understand the goal. I want to get there. I want to level up. I want to, I want to encounter more customers. I want to encounter more mini games. Like I was just immediately hooked by it.
And I'll give you this. One thing that's unique about our game. In most cozy games, you're not fated to die at the end. So that's pretty cool.
It's
That's a
true.
pretty unique selling point.
and
It's more
and
true to life. It's more true to life. I'll give you that.
that's true. It's true. It's at you're also at it. When every day when you're at your job, listener, you should think about how you're fated to die at the end. um,
Yep.
but thinking about as well, like how it gets from oh, you're running your restaurant to presumably again not touching any of the future stuff, but like just just thinking in my head like, oh, this is gonna get serious at some point, and that's a fun sort of tension to sort
What?
of play with.
Where could you have possibly gotten that idea? It's just gonna be fine. It's gonna be fluff. Like a fluff fic.
Yeah.
It's gonna be
Um.
like this for like 20 more hours, and nothing
Absolutely.
else is gonna happen.
And so thinking more about the gameplay loop, like one of the things that really, obviously we've talked about this already, you mentioned this already and it's pretty clear from the gameplay, but like, there's no fighting. Fighting is completely removed. And there's you are obviously I think that's a good thematic fit with the kindness soul, but like was
Hmm.
very early on in development was that were you already like we're not going to have any fight mechanics at all. We're not going to have any,
I mean,
violence as an option. Was that sort of right away the decision?
if you mean right away, as in literally the idea that started the game, yes.
Yeah. And so
Because I
tell me
mean,
a little bit more about the
if I
implications of
may,
that.
yes, yes, yes. Uh, so I remember there was some video a long time ago, that was talking about soul traits, and it was in the context of Undertale Yellow. So I won't talk too much about it because it would technically spoil Undertale Yellow. But the sort of idea that it had was like the soul traits, like including like Undertale determination, which is technically not a soul trait. I don't want to get into it. Uh, this is not a lore episode. We'll have a lore episode eventually, you and me, so I can rant about blood lore or something. Uh, but the point is, like the traits had like a positive and a negative side that could work with the sort of choice-based routes of Undertale. Uh, so stuff like determination in Undertale, like determination could be good because you can use that to do the pacifist run, or it can lead you to the genocide run, that sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so I remember the sort of idea that came from kindness really stuck with me the wrong way, and I was like, that's not, well, first of all, it makes sense, but that's not interesting, which is kind of like a sort of mercy killing angle of why you do a sort of genocide route for a kindness soul, which you could do that, probably makes sense. You can make it make sense. It's just not, first of all, it's not really anything interesting or new.
Yeah.
No shade to anybody that's doing that. I realize that there's a lot of other soul people that want to make green game for green people that can be placed here with Green Gaster. You're fine if you want to do that. You're probably cool. This is not an attack on you. But the point is, I didn't think that was very interesting. So I thought, what would actually be the sort of negative side of kindness that wouldn't like lead to that? And again, not to get too into late game stuff, but like this is pretty clear from early on, which is the sort of idea of like selflessness as the sort of main idea behind with kindness, where it's rather, because what I've said before is that despite the title, this is going to be shocking. Undertale Cooking with Kindness is not actually about kindness necessarily. I would say it's more about self-worth or selflessness, and obviously selflessness is a bit of an aspect of kindness, or a sort of, I don't know what you'd call it, but it's related to kindness in a very deep, intricate way. But it can also be obviously selflessness if you just take the exact word to face value of its meaning. Again, like determination being determination, you come back from death. Aha, fun wordplay.
Yeah.
Selflessness is like lack of self, lack of regard for the self.
Yep.
And so obviously that could be pretty bad. That's no good. And so there's this sort of dichotomy there of like you being kind to others, but not being kind to oneself. And I don't think I'm going to leave it that there. But I also don't think I went in tangent and didn't answer the question whatsoever.
No, I like that. I really appreciated that. Yeah, replace it. But I feel like that comes through with why you went with no fighting.
There's also another thing I do want to mention is one thing I really want to get into. This is a message to all other fan game creators. You do not have to do routes. You don't have to do pacifist genocide neutral routes, like 20 million neutral routes. That is not going to be feasible for you. It's going to take 8 years for you to do all the routes with all the scope. I know this is hypocritical of me to say when I've been 2 years making a demo, but listen, multiple routes, like having such a dynamic game with choices that differ the story and give you a lot more work, that's a lot of work. That's a lot of game to make. Pace yourself and think about the scope. That's my Rose Raid tip.
Not only that, but like we already did that. Like Toby already did that. Like
we already did that, exactly.
Yeah, so like you're not gonna actually be exploring new territory if you do. Like I'm gonna do, here's my standard route, here's my pacifist route, here's my no mercy route. Like, okay, you're treading over the exact same ground. You're not doing anything new when you do that.
It's a similar problem to what the old Age of Undertale use did, where it's just like, it's Undertale, but Papyrus is swapped with Sans and nothing else has changed meaningfully. Or it's Undertale, but everybody's mean and edgy and from 2004 now. Sorry, Underfell fans. I'm sure you're cool. I just think it's kind of funny.
Yeah.
No, go on. I forgot what I was going to say anyway.
Absolutely. So I was I think I'll put a pin then in the sort of the implications of violence. I think we've covered that. So I want to talk a little bit about the setting then. So you're in this place in Hotland. You're setting. In this. Yeah. So you're in. It's. I just I talked about this right at the top with what I took away from it, but I think it's one of my favorite things. Is this you're in this sort of bustling place that instead of traversing spatially, you're traversing temporally, right? Yes. The way that it changes is primarily day by day over time. And so you get a different collection of characters, the folks who are there, who are loitering around or saying new things. You're eavesdropping. One of my favorite features was the eavesdropping on the neighbors. The sicko.
You want to know the funny thing about the sicko mechanic?
Yeah.
I for the longest time I had no idea what to do with the apartment, and then on a random afternoon I had the idea, and then I just made it coded it all in an afternoon. And then everybody else on the team was like, what did you do? And then it was the sicko, and sicko's here now.
It's you get this great sense of
it.
like, I get up and I've got a little routine. I'm gonna go spy on everybody. Like, it's it just feels like there's like a there's like a
you
day
heard
by
it here
day.
First.
Yeah, that's what I do in real life too. I wake up and I go spy on everybody in my apartment.
I mean, you're a bird. It makes it easy.
Yeah. But like it's this very like sort of living, breathing place, and I was thinking a little bit of it like Kamurocho in like the Yakuza games, the Like a Dragon games, of being a game set.
I can give you my list of inspirations. It's very.
Yeah, hit me.
I don't know how familiar. It's the main hubs in Pokemon Mystery Dungeon. That's the main one.
Yep.
Like Treasure Town and stuff. It's Possum Springs in Night in the Woods.
Yeah.
It's Termina in Majora's Mask. Those are the main three.
That's a great list. It definitely makes sense, and like I just love it because it feels so dynamic, and instead of requiring, I'm assuming from your perspective, it's great because instead of having to make a million new maps to travel all over the place, you just get to iterate on the existing one. And again, it feels like a lot of this game is very intelligently about living within your means as a small team, right? As a mostly, I'm assuming
it's like most. That now, but I'm looking at stuff we have to do later on, and I sigh wistfully knowing that it's going to be a long time. But it's definitely manageable, and that's very nice to know for me, because we have so many great and talented artists and programmers working on the team now that we can actually. I have a good feeling, and since we've been making such fast progress on this, I know that we can do a really good job to develop it in the full game. This is my second tip of the day. Friendship is good. Make good friends and make cool stuff together.
Absolutely. That's been some of the best experiences of my life, have been getting to make stuff with a big group of friends. And it's such a force multiplier too, for being able to get your ideas out into the world, that if you're plugging along on something
and keep
solo,
you motivated.
Yeah, exactly. If you're plugging along on something solo and you feel like you're not making progress, I think my biggest piece of advice is just share it. It's gonna keep you keep you motivated. It's gonna give you some external pressure to keep going. And also it's just gonna,
and it's gonna make it better in the end.
Yeah. It's going to change it from what it would just be on your own. And, you mentioned it being more of a reflection of Deltarune than Undertale. And I do feel like Deltarune itself is is a reflection of, obviously Undertale, big team effort. There's a lot more contributors to Undertale than just Toby, but Deltarune, even more than that, feels like a reflection of a collective and collaborative effort. And that actually reminds me of, thinking about this setting, thinking about, sort of peering behind some of the looking more deeply into Hotland and seeing more of the sort of the society of Underground, right? Of the Underground. I was thinking about, midway through this development, the 10th anniversary stream came out, right? Where,
yes.
You got a little glimpse into more of the Underground, right? And more of the day-to-day life, and more of the big buildings, and, more of a thought. And how was, I was just thinking it must have been, it's very concordant, I think, the view of the Underground in this game and the view of the Underground that you get to glimpse a little bit in the 10th anniversary stream. They feel like they work really well together. And so how was your reaction to seeing that come out?
Okay, so first of all, I need to contextualize by saying the headspace I was in when the stream was happening. By first saying I was very sick. I was bedridden sick. And the stream was happening at I don't know, it was running at 1 a.m. at my time zone or something. So I was already quite delirious. Mm-hmm. And then they go into Hotland, and they get to that new area that's there's this flavor text that I think you got about Hotland University.
Yeah. The student.
And then I just watch them go into a Hotland high school that was basically looked exactly like some of my sketches of what that would look like. And I was like, is Toby Fox spying on me? Is he living in my walls? What's happening here? Very bizarre experience.
Yeah, and so I just thought I thought that was just really fun because I was thinking about like because you couldn't have known about the 10th anniversary stream while you were making this, but it really felt like it
Unless I was
doved
there all the time. Maybe
unless
I
you
was one
were.
of the secret devs.
It's true.
I
I
was
mean,
not,
it's true
for
that
the
some
record.
modders were folks who worked on that stream as well, which is it and that actually brings me to like let's talk about modding Undertale because Undertale is like famously like a mess code base wise.
Yes.
And so
That's why we didn't. That's why we didn't mod Undertale.
I was about to ask, is it a mod or did you just ape Undertale and just do it from scratch?
It is decided. Okay, I'll give you the context. So in the first month of developing the idea, Snaz Islam, which is my co-director and main programmer, we were engine hunting and figuring out what we should do, and we came up with a couple of ideas. The first idea was modding Undertale, and that was shot down pretty quick because a few of us were aware that seems like a really, really unfun process.
Yeah.
The second idea that was thrown around was modding Undertale Yellow, and we're like, oh, maybe they should. It's a much longer game. There are a lot more people who worked on it. It was running for a while. It was after Undertale. Surely they must have coded it better. It was worse. It was harder to mod. So that was also shot down. Then we had the idea of using the ancient like Unity create your frisks thing or something like similar, like Unitil. But that was really old and famously unreliable. And so we landed on the final idea, which is it's the Crystal engine in Love 2D, which is, funnily enough, a Deltarune fan game engine. It's not Undertale at all. So again, that's another reason why this is technically more of a Deltarune response than Undertale response.
Yeah.
But there was a library associated with that engine called Magical Glass that eventually evolved into Magical Glass Redux. It was a whole thing. But it basically turned it into the engine retrofitted into Undertale. So you'll notice what's happening here is we're retrofitting an engine for Undertale that was already retrofitted of an engine meant to emulate Deltarune. So we're like 4 layers of abstraction away from Undertale, maybe 5.
Yeah.
Despite everything, the punch cart glitch still worked.
Did you have to implement? I'm assuming you implemented that so it worked, or
No, I don't know if that was in base Crystal or Magical Glass added it. Either way, it works.
and
it's authentic.
And thinking about that, thinking about the neighborhood too, in Hotland, I was also thinking one of the things that really felt that. Sorry, what's that?
The core square.
The core square. Yeah, thinking about it, I think one of the main things that really made it feel great was that the NPC dialogue is like spot on. I thought that the vibe of it was like I was super impressed by just how like just how Undertale feeling the characters talked. And just how much like your random interactions, have the same sort of stupid jokes and wordplay and characters bouncing off each other that just feels very real Undertale. And so I was wondering, like, when you're writing just like the random NPCs, like how did you do that Toby-core style?
So most of the NPCs, like I'd say 90% of the NPCs are just me.
Yeah.
And the process is I come up with a bit or a pun. I make that into NPC, and then I stretch that out into an interaction. For example, there was the 2 NPCs, one that's like a donkey, a little short donkey, the other a tall giraffe. The entire premise of that was, what if there was a bit where 2 NPCs, one was short and one was tall, and they just made an endless assortment of puns about that. Yeah. And that's what the interaction with those NPCs is. Just an endless parade of puns. I love puns. Puns are my favorite thing in the universe. I love puns so much. What's your favorite NPC, Kate? I'm curious.
I think my favorite is the coffee shop vampire.
He's so funny. His name is Draculate.
Yes, Draculate.
He's one of the he's the one NPC that isn't like a main character that has voice blips. And you know what the voice blips are?
I don't.
The voice blips are like a recording of one of our coders going bleh. And then it gets cut up and going blah 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 blah.
Very good.
That's why he has no voice.
Very, very good. I also I really loved. I think the first thing that really made me crack up in the game was the worm. That was that I was very much
I
like
was so proud. That was one of the first bits I wrote. I was so proud of it because I needed to figure a way to block out areas.
And
like,
I just felt like this
what's
is
a good
so
Undertale way to do
Undertale.
it?
This is so Undertale. What's what's happening to me right now? I was immediately like, it's that little bit of like playful player hostility that I felt like was so great.
The best part of the game, or of making this game, is getting to watch the playtesters laugh at all my stupid jokes.
Yeah, it's very good.
I got so much energy from all the people laughing at Big Horny. Because every time I think about Big Horny, I laugh.
Yeah. And so now that we talk about the random NPCs, I do want to talk about, I want to talk a little. We talked about Luna already. I want to talk about a couple of the other major characters a little bit more. And so I guess I would say this is the point where I'll say, if you want no spoilers about the demo, pause.
Play the video game. It's
pause
free.
right here.
It's on Games. You'll download it right now. 2 hours.
Check the link in the description.
It's out.
It's out. Go play the video game. We got the link is there.
If you can't find it, come to me and I'll give it to you.
Yeah. Just walk outside
and I'll hand it to you.
Walk outside, yell to the sky, "I want to play Undertale Cooking with Kindness," and it will drop into your lap.
I will fly over there.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that barrier in hand, let's talk about the big bad. Let's talk about the lone shark. Let's talk about
yes.
Let's talk about Moz.
I love him. Moz.
Moz.
Okay, so before we start, I really wish, as Moz is one of the few characters. I think maybe basically the only character that has like a strong co-writer credit, because we have one of our composers, Matman, is a really funny voices guy, and he got really into doing the Moz voice. He's the voice of Moz in the game. There's multiple times where you hear his laugh or like him do lines and stuff. That's all Matman. And he gets the character so well. He gets that energy so well. It's so fun to work together with him on writing Moz scenes and coming up with ideas for stuff he'd say. Moz is a really fun character to write. Not just because he's funny, but because he's a pretty unique kind of character as Undertale characters come. But I'll let you do your preamble or talk, whatever you say.
Yeah. I mean, I immediately found him, he's a super engaging villain. He's super fun. And I do like that, I mean, he's just awful, but he's not like, he's not awful in your like typical RPG villain way. Like he's
not King. He's not like evil, like monologuing at the screen. I'm going to cover the world in darkness kind of evil.
He reminded me a bit of like Everard Clare from Disco Elysium, where he's just so slimy, but you kind of can't help but like him because it's like, what he wants, like what motivates him.
The concoction that created him was a mix of Grunkle Stan and Spamton.
Yeah,
those are the main inspirations.
And he's got a lot of personality. Like, as you mentioned, he's like partially voiced. And so he's got that like, sort of like Metaton or Spamton or Tenna thing where you're like
charisma.
Yes, exactly. Where you're bringing in more, you're bringing in some voice lines, you're bringing in more polish and more oomph than your average NPC in an RPG. Just like it's like the game is like setting out like this guy's special. This guy's got the sauce, and he breaks through the interface as well, and like in a way that's just very much like this is this is irregular. This guy's like totally throwing off everything.
And you know what that also describes? Which other character that also describes? Sam's fucking Undertale.
That's true. You're right. They've got a similar ability to sort of break through the conventions of the user interface in the game that you're playing. And I was, you're just like this fucking guy the whole time, and his constantly escalating and like how much he's taking from you and how much he's messing with you. And it's just a great feeling. It's a great feeling barrier that I think keeps the game from feeling too like soft and cuddly too. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. He's, one of our playtesters put it really well, where he's like the dose of not cynicism but realism. Like he's sort of the one that needs to talk sense talk a bit of sense into the situation, but like in his own way, where it's not like sense as in he's a reasonable person. It's sense as in he's given it to you straight.
Yeah.
In however toxic a way that might be.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, it's like you know, it's like he's totally untrustworthy, but that's paradoxically makes him trustworthy, where it's like, and also, I was thinking about as well, because we're in demo spoiler territory here. Nobody else notices that you're a human except for him.
No.
And I found that to be interesting, that like, he picked up on what's going on more than anybody else.
One thing about Maz is that he plays up like he's got the silly facade, but he is like actually quite smart. He's very clever.
Yeah.
Again, very sans of him.
Yes, absolutely. And again to spoil, again, just play the demo if you haven't. Just go ahead and play the demo if you want to. If you want to be surprised by this, because when this character walked in, a cheer went to the rafters. I was like, oh yeah, because obviously you'd seen Toriel at the start, and you'd seen a few familiar NPCs, right? You'd seen a few of the like random fights from Undertale come through. You'd seen your classic Frogget, and a couple other minor characters. But when young Grillby walks into your restaurant, that the crowd went Grill Baby. The crowd went fucking wild. And so talk to me a little bit about your decision to like include, to sort of shed some light on Grillby origins in this story.
Well, there's multiple layers to it, obviously. So, firstly, like if you were to name like a character, okay. So actually, before all that, there's the timeline thing, which is with the point that this game takes place in the Undertale timeline. None of the other really major characters are alive. Sans, Papyrus, Undyne, Alphys, Mettaton, none of them are around. This is before them. This is pre them.
Yeah.
And so, if we were to bring any of the other NPCs back, it'd have to be someone that was old enough to sort of make sense to be here at this stage.
Yeah.
And Grillby doesn't have a canon age, obviously, but I don't know. He's like my dad's age. He's that age.
Yeah.
So bringing him down here as like a kid, that makes sense to me, obviously, intuitively. Then obviously there's the other layer, which is he obviously already owns a restaurant in Undertale. So that's obviously an instant connection to draw back from. And you're like, okay, so you're getting this sort of you're getting the context of cooking with kindness. It's cooking, and there's kindness, and Grillby's there, and then you know that eventually Grillby's going to have this restaurant. So it's like, okay, this feels. You can see that this is going to like lead to somewhere. This is going to feel like a more cohesive sort of A to B in a sense. But the major thing, there's another thing that I know I keep adding to this list. Location. So in Undertale, like the frying pan and the stained apron, which are the green soul items, those are just like randomly found in Hotland.
Yeah.
So that's a big reason why the game takes place in Hotland in the first place. It's like sort of the sort of ideas connected. Like it's a sort of it feels right. And so Grillby, according at least from what we know in the very famous Grillby's Rogues Gallery comic from the newsletter.
Yeah.
He actually came from a Hotland and then moved to Snowdon and set up his shop there or his bar there. So that makes also sense in terms of location. So everything sort of lines up in diegesis for Grillby to show up here.
Yeah.
Then there's obviously the real clincher, which is the sort of more meta layer, which is in Undertale. Grillby is a character with 2 words of dialogue. No, not lines, 2 words.
Yeah.
He only says 2 words in Undertale. And so obviously there's not a lot to go off of there. But one thing that Toby proved about, and obviously also the fandom, because the fandom is also weirdly obsessed with Grillby. At least the 2016 era fandom was obsessed with Grillby.
I will say show musician, Gumi is totally obsessed with Grillby, and so I'm going to get them to play your game just by saying Grillby's in it.
That's good. I'm glad. One of our playtesters said like one of their favorite parts of the demo was Grillby, and they really loved. Paraphrasing the quote, but it was something along the lines of watching him just be a little autistic child for a little bit.
Yeah.
So that was fun. But again, I'm getting off track again. The clincher, he only has 2 words of dialogue in Undertale, so he's a bit of a he's a character that can be mined for depth, as the fandom and Toby have shown in the Grillby's Rogues Gallery comic. That he's got, like, it's really easy to sort of give him more depth, but it also leaves him in this position in Undertale as a sort of black box with this context, where it's like he's the only one of the central cast of this game that is in Undertale. Everybody else, not there. And so he's sort of it's a black box. Like when you're it's sort of keeping all that information, but not letting it get out, and sort of staying with him and no one else. And I think that's a really interesting factor without giving too much away.
Yeah,
absolutely. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And let me look over my notes here to see, because we are at the hour mark.
Oh dear.
And but my main takeaway here is I had so much fun playing this, and I'm absolutely champing at the bit for more, and also to share it with people. And so my question for you then is, what's next for you? What's next for what's your plan moving forward now that you're here at release day? What's going on now?
Here's the plan. I'm going to take a break.
Good idea.
That's the plan.
Good call.
For like a little bit, I'm going to take a break, and then we're going to dive back in. Actually, to be more specific, a couple days after the demo drops, I'll be working on bug fixes and fixing any other issues people find, and then it's going to be a break. So that's the plan.
Yeah. And so Undertale Cooking with Kindness, it's on Game Jolt for free. It is the version's for PC. Here's what I'll tell you. I played it on Mac through Wine. Absolutely zero problems with that at all. And I booted it. I didn't record it or anything, but I did boot it on my Steam Deck running SteamOS via Proton. No problems at all. So if you're running Mac or Linux, you should be able to run it via Wine or Proton and not run into any issues.
And if you're running, I think we'll be able to package it natively for Linux. It's just Mac that's annoying.
Mac is so as a Mac user, I know that I'm the bane of indie developers because of the stupid gatekeeper software signing that Apple does, because they don't want you to be able to own your computer that you run.
Okay. Here's the thing. It's not as bad as a Chromebook.
That's true. At least you can run fucking software.
Yes.
If you're on a Chromebook, you're shit out of luck, buddy.
Yep. I'm sorry. Can't do nothing. I tried.
And so I think that's the main thing. Is like, go hit the link in the description, download and play this game. It's a ton of fun. And thanks so much for coming on. It was such a blast to get to talk to you about this. And I just think you've done.
It's a blast for me to get to talk about it, and
I think
people to talk about too now that the game is done or the demo is done.
And you're in the Discord for the show as well. So if you have any questions or any reactions, please be sure to
instead of doing that I'm going to steal your users from the survey program Discord server and move them over to the Cooking with Kindness community server, which I need to actually update because I haven't updated it to have stuff for when the demo comes out. So
yeah, hit me with a link and I'll put it in the description.
I will do that. Yahoo.
All right. Well, thanks so much for coming on. Have a great rest of your. It's going to be Sunday evening for you. Have a great rest of your Sunday evening, and listeners, have a great few weeks. See you in the outro. That's Survey Program, folks. Download the game and check out all the links in the description. Remember, you can support the show for $5 a month and get access to our growing list of bonus episodes on non-Deltarune topics. You can listen wherever you get your podcasts. You can listen on YouTube. You can listen on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, on wherever you get your podcast with RSS. See you in 2 weeks, everybody.
Right, Amalgamated General Productions GmbH.